If we talk about conflict along the border, if we talk about the border itself as a frontier area, then there were periods of lawlessness that existed that became part of the culture. And so the culture of smuggling, right, or drug trafficking, that's nothing new. And I think that's one of the perceptions that people have of the U.S.-Mexico border. Smuggling has been a part of borderlands since the colonial era, where you have Spain and France, and, they traded with each other illegally. I mean, that has happened.
Yes.
And it contributed to the construction of a culture that over the generations, over the decades, maybe even centuries, has remained. And so, when I spoke to the students, I said, if you want to further understand American policies towards the U.S.-Mexico border today, then it's important as a historian to examine the Jimmy Carter, President of the United States administration, Ronald Reagan administration, and then George Bush administration, because that was a period where you have an expansion of activities along the U.S.-Mexico border and expansion of military duties, where you have laws that permitted for the U.S. military to, quote unquote, police, to work with local police along the U.S.-Mexico border. And you have a budget expansion, massive budget expansion for the Department of Defense. I mean, if you look at the budget for the INS, which is just one branch, Immigration and Naturalization Service, it was upwards, if I remember correctly, of almost from 80 to 88 to $800 million a year, roughly. That's just for one branch. In the Bush administration, and there are several books out there that cover this data at length. But in the Bush administration, Reagan and Bush administrations, you have an expansion in patrols along the border, 89 to roughly 91. You go from 9, I believe, to almost 300 reconnaissance patrols. I mean, you name it. So that is a critical period that only to this day continues with, the military along the United States-Mexico border, an expansion in agents, INS, Border Patrol, you name it. And so, the construction of a wall, I mean, is that really new? No. What about the Great Wall in China? What was it there for?
Yeah,
right?
Or in German, in Berlin. Yeah.
Right, in Berlin. So, again, as a historian, if you want to understand policy along the U.S.-Mexico border today, then it really does. It makes a lot of sense to go back and look historically at how we constructed borders, and then the security issues that revolve around those borders.